It's been a bounce-back year for the Moree region in northern New South Wales. Months of solid rainfall have left the landscape in an optimistic shade of green, with late summer crops in the ground and a bumper winter harvest on the horizon. Drought might be in the rearview mirror, but there's a whole new problem to contend with: plague locusts.
Certainly, yeah, gave me a bit of a fright. I'd always heard about them, but never ever seen them in that proportion. I mean, the ground was moving. They were moving through the grass, and the grass was shaking. There were so many of them.
Stock and Station agents and grazier Andrew Pittman first spotted the pests on his property around New Year's Day. Extended drought conditions have meant there have been little to no activity of the native insect across eastern Australia for almost a decade.
Just a small patch here, we'll give them a hit on the way past. Look, I got straight onto the LLS. They organised some chemical for me. And I went out and started just spot spraying with a hand wand. I thought I might have been getting on top of them, but as the days went on and on, I realised I was fighting a losing battle. So I had to get a bit bigger machinery and put a boomless nozzle on the back of a ute, and it became a real labour of love for the next 2 to 3 weeks, just trying to keep on top of them, which I think we've possibly done.
Locust numbers in the Moree region aren't yet being classified as in plague proportion, but they can multiply in staggering numbers and decimate crops and grazing country. For landholders like Andrew, it takes a community to contain the locusts effectively.
Hey Alan, how are you going?
Great, Andrew. How are you, bud?
Yeah, good, thanks, good.
Bit warm?
Very warm indeed. Neighbours in this situation have to work together. I assisted Alan with some spraying, I assisted another neighbour with some spraying. At the end of the day, the grasshoppers aren't going to know where the boundary fence is. So it's a job for everybody. You know, the whole district has to work together to combat them.
I'm a bit concerned about if they do come back, June, July, August, what we're going to feed our cows on. I guess there is a great lot of fodder after last harvest because we had a lot of hay, straw and hay baled, I think. But the cost to cattle and sheep producers could be quite horrific in trying to feed your cattle if after these grasshoppers come through.
Yeah, we just need everybody on board, everybody checking and identifying where the problems are.
And not just farmers, but the LLS and Ag department, everybody.
Yep. Local agronomist Casey Onus has also been working closely with landholders to monitor the movements of locusts, and there are already warning signs of what could happen if they come back in greater numbers.
They first started marching in from the fallow, so they've just moved in a big crawling band slowly into the crop, and they've just sort of decimated everything in its path. And then as they've sort of started to get on the wing a bit, you can see where they've just chewed through the plant. So they've gone through whole stems and taken out terminals, and I dare say we won't even pick a fair bit of this area here. It won't be worthwhile. So we're potentially looking at a multi-million-dollar issue. Moree is Australia's richest agricultural shire, so there's a lot of potential to do thousands of hectares of damage very quickly.
In New South Wales, landholders have been asked to report any activity to local land services to help stop the destructive insects from spreading. Spraying young nymphs while they're still wingless and banding in thick patches on the ground is the best hope landholders have of containing an outbreak. But once they reach maturity and get their wings, there's almost nothing that can be done to stop locusts flying away and laying the next generation.
With the locusts being on the wing now, we're quite concerned about the upcoming winter crop. So because we've not got a lot of cropping at the moment, it's not too bad, but once we have widespread winter crop in the ground and coming up everywhere, we are quite concerned. They can do a lot of damage very quick, so it doesn't take many to take out a few crops. Growers are pretty well at capacity. Everyone's doing their bit and everyone's trying to spray as much as they can. So I think everyone's putting the effort in. It's just trying to get on top of such prolific numbers. I haven't seen one this bad in my lifetime, but yeah, there's a lot of old blokes out there saying that it reminds them of plagues in the past, so that's obviously very concerning. I'd rather not see that.
Until quite recently, it was thought that plague locusts seasonally migrated through Queensland into New South Wales, then continued on from Victoria through to South Australia. But the Australian Plague Locust Commission says the pests simply pop up when wet weather leaves plenty of green feed for them to feast on, and since drought-breaking rain covered much of the country's east in early 2020, locust hotspots have already been sighted in Lake Cargelligo, Ivanhoe, Burke in New South Wales, and in Gundawindi and Cunnamulla in Queensland.
These are the ones that obviously got missed.
Yeah. David Lindsay is a senior biosecurity officer with the LLS in Moree. He says extreme measures like using planes to spray massive patches of country are a last resort measure. So at the moment, authorities are coordinating containment efforts from the ground.
We need to be out there and supplying locust chemicals, and we have a few spray units and things that we can lend out to if need be.
The New South Wales Department of Primary Industries says there are a variety of control chemicals available to landholders who are legally obliged to contain any outbreaks found on their land. There's also a biological control agent derived from a naturally occurring Australian fungus, which can be used in sensitive areas and on organic farms.
And here's all your safety information, so just make sure that you wear your PPE and that you wash your equipment down very well.
After almost 2 months of running a campaign of containment across the region, the summer locusts are getting ready to start laying the next generation of eggs. It's a race against time with dire consequences.
You can see that his body's still pretty small. He's only pretty young, just recently fledged. And normally you can pull them apart and you can see that they're actually putting fat into their body, and they've got to do that before they'll mate and start to develop eggs.
Forecasting by the Department of Agriculture says more swarms are expected to develop in the Moree region heading into autumn, and with a low chance the locusts will migrate to another neighbouring region, the infestation is likely here to stay.
You know, what happens into the future, it's really hard. It's hard to predict anything. It's going to depend on whether the locusts decide to move on or whether they are happy to stay where they are. If the feed's right, they may just stay where they are. The next wave, when it comes through, it's likely to be probably later in March, and a lot of people in the area will have early winter crops, fodder crops for oats and that sort of stuff. So they're going to be badly affected if we get lots of locusts into those.